Hi, seniors. So I'm going to talk about something that's not really English related. I hope you watched the maxed out video. Um, every year at the end of the school year, I start or I do a little thing on debt. And it's because you're about to leave high school and go to college. And it's just one of those things that I kind of feel passionately about. I'm not sure that you've ever um, been instructed at all on the usage of debt. And so I showed the maxed out video, which I think does a good job of highlighting dangers of getting into debt. And the only thing I kind of take issue with is a lot of the video really highlights kind of the bad things that banks do. Um, and we'll talk about that. But I think the emphasis should be more um, on what you can do to keep financially secured and to stay safe. As you saw in the video, there's a couple of parents that talk about their children who got into bad credit card debt and wound up committing suicide. And that's one of the reasons I do this is I feel very passionate about that. It hurts me to think about students who get into this such bad credit card debt that they wind up taking their own lives. This year I wasn't going to do a lecture. I Because of the COVID-19, I just kind of figured, you know what, I'll let the maxed out video stand on its own. And then last week, Samuel got this in the mail. It's a credit card application, and it reminded me of why I do this. You are graduating high school, you're going on to college, and you are exactly what the banks want is new people who are interested in credit cards and interested in things, and they want you as a customer. So I'm going to share a little bit about my story. It's not a long one, and then just a couple of other little things that I think you might find interested. So I got my first credit card when I was in college, and one of the first thing I was doing was just paying for my gas with it, and I would pay it off every month, or my parents would help me. And then after a while, I got a Visa card, and I really wanted this thing called a word processor, a Brother word processor. It's kind of like a computer, except it is actually a typewriter, and I would type things and save it to a disk, and then it would literally type it out. It's $400. And I used my credit card for that. And it was like the first time that I didn't pay off something right away. And then I unfortunately had some bad cars. I had a car that was unreliable. It broke down on the way to college, and I had to put another $200 on that, or I was going to be stuck in Waco forever. I had a transmission go out. That was another $500. But even with those things, the things that really started to add up that I didn't pay attention to were, hey, I want to go out for dinner. I want to get a late night pizza. I want to go grocery shopping for stuff that I didn't really need, but I wanted. And um, and it was just a way to kind of rack up debt, honestly. My first job did not pay very well. You saw in the video Louis C.K. talking about having a savings account that was really small, $15. I have had the experience of going to an ATM and saying, I want $20 out. And the ATM said no, because I didn't have $20. I only had 18. You can't take out $18 from an ATM. I've had that experience. It's not fun. When I graduated college actually right before I got married, I graduated college and worked for a couple of years. I had $2,000 in credit card debt, which is not a lot, but it seemed like a lot at the time. Making minimum payments, just kind of sticking with that. I also had student debt. I had student loan debt. My wife had $4,000 in savings. It was a very difficult conversation, but I said, hey, new wife, I hope you trust me, but I've got $2,000 in credit card debt. And she knew about that before, but I had to very gingerly say, can we take some of your savings and pay that off? And of course, we're married, so she did. And I'm happy to say that, we refocused how we were spending money and how I was spending money. And we were able to save that $2,000 back up within the year. So we had paid off $2,000 in debt and then saved it all back up within a year. the video is not wrong entirely about banks. Some of the things they do seem kind of sneaky. So one of the other things that we learned as Tristan and I got out of debt was we were paying off student loans, and one time we got a gift of $1,000, and we put that down on our student loans. And the next time that bill came, it said minimum payment 0. And we went, all right, we were still struggling, didn't have, the salary that we were making wasn't a lot of money. We were trying to make rent and all this. And so we said, well, it's nice not to have to pay for a student loan payment this month. So let's pass on it. Let's skip it. And we did that for 9 months, and then realized that while we weren't paying that, interest was accruing. And after 9 months, that $1,000 we had put on our student loan had been completely wiped out. It had reaccrued, and the balance was the exact same. We essentially lost almost a year in paying off the student loan. Now, I want to emphasize the bank didn't do anything wrong technically. They were just charging interest on a loan that was still out. So why not? I wish that I had been more savvy and known that the interest was accruing and just made some, at least interest payments or something to keep it at that same level, but we didn't. So it was definitely one of those live and learn moments. I want to give you another example, and this is going to be kind of a strange one, at least at first. But there was a guy that used to come to Holy Trinity when I was principal, and he was always trying to sell different products to us, different financial products to us. And he knew me as being very much anti-debt guy. I'm not going to get into debt. I don't want to do that. And so one time he came in and he said, hey, if you wanted to buy an RV for $100,000 and you had $100,000 in the bank, would you use your entire savings for that, or would you take out a loan? And I, of course, said, I don't want an RV for $100,000. He said, oh, I don't know, but what if you did? What if you did want an RV for $100,000? And I said, I would pay for it. I would just use my savings and pay for it. And he said, well, let me show you what you're missing. And let me pull this up real quick. I've kind of simplified this on a slide. And he said, if you paid for it, you would, if you borrowed money, you would pay $15,000 in interest. And this is based actually on a very low interest rate, 2% over the course of 15 years. And he said, by keeping that $100,000 in the bank, you would earn $25,000 in interest. And at the end, that's obviously, that's a net gain of $9,000. In other words, you would earn more interest than you would pay. And at the end, you would have an RV and $125,000. And I went and said, that can't be true. There's got to be something wrong here, right? So I went and checked. Okay, so here's what I did. Let's say I borrowed $100,000 to pay for that RV, okay? Then that means my monthly payment at 2% would be $643.51. And yes, right there is the $15,831 I would pay in interest, okay? And over here, if I kept that $100,000 in the bank because I borrowed it, right? I borrowed the $100,000 to pay for the RV, and I just kept the $100,000 in the bank and just let it sit there at an interest rate of 1.5%, then I would earn $25,000. So that net gain is true. And of course, me as the debt guy was like, this can't be right. I'm missing something. And then I realized what it was. Well, first, if you can find a bank right now that is paying a 1.5%, that's amazing right now, because savings interest rates are crazy low. But it's not even that. It's this 0 monthly contribution part. If instead of taking out the loan, I wipe out my savings and then pay myself $644 every month for 15 years, and I get that same interest rate, then I actually wind up with more money in the end, $129,000. Let's look at those two scenarios on the slide, okay? So this is the first one, borrow money, You pay 15,000 in interest, you earn 25,000 in interest. That's a net gain of 9,000. At the end, you have an RV and $125,000. That's great. Okay, but if I paid for it and then I pay myself back, then I don't pay anything in interest. I earn $13,000 in interest, which is less, but at the end, I have an RV and $129,000. So that's $4,000 better. But here's the big thing. Just like a lot of things with finances, it takes discipline. I would have to be disciplined enough to make that payment every month. And this way is also less risky because you see, if I borrow money from a bank for an RV, and then at some point I stop making my payments, guess what they do? They come and take the RV. If I borrow the money from myself and I pay for that RV up front, then at some point, if I don't make a payment, I don't lose the RV. I keep it. It's less risky. I don't want to get too caught up in the numbers. The gist is, and the reason I give that example is this was a guy who is interested in making loans. I mean, that was his job. It's, hey, I've got this product and you can borrow money and pay it back. You shouldn't be against debt. You can sometimes earn more money that way. And what I'm telling you is it's not true. It's just not true. Whenever somebody encourages you to borrow money and says that it's better for you, man, that double check, triple check, it's probably not true. I'm not going to say there's never a time when you should borrow money. Obviously, most people can't put down, pay for their house up front. I certainly couldn't. I borrowed money for that. I borrowed money for my truck that you see me drive all the time. I mean, we've certainly borrowed money in the past. There are definitely times when that's something to do. Student loan is not the world's worst thing. The student loan is actually probably one of the best loans you can get because as long as you pass and get your degree, then it will never depreciate. It will never go away. My truck at some point is going to have to be replaced. Your degree won't go away. So that's actually a wise investment. But don't borrow if you don't have to. And if somebody starts throwing numbers at you and telling you that it actually makes financial sense for you to borrow this money, I've seen it. It's not true. You can actually put it down on paper. I'll give you another example. This is kind of scary. You saw the thing about the payday loans in the at St. Mary, not at St. Mary's, on the video, on the Maxed Out video. The reason I mentioned St. Mary's is on the way to St. Mary's from my house, we passed by a payday loan, and they've got a big advertisement out, and it says borrow $1,300 for 12 months, and the monthly payment is only $168 a month. And so that sounds kind of neat. I'll get $1,300 right now, and I can use it for whatever, and I just have to pay it back $168 a month. I'm going to share this again, share the screen again so that you can see what that breakdown is. If you borrow $1,300 and your monthly payment is $168.67, and you do that over the course of a year for 12 months, it's over $2,000. Which means that to have $1,300 right now at the end of the year, it will have cost you $724. Basic percentage, all right? If you divide that by 1,300, it'll tell you the percent is 55.7%. That's crazy. Please avoid payday loans. It doesn't make sense. $1,300 right now it sounds amazing, but $168 a month, oh gosh, it's not worth it. If you just think about that, if you could somehow find a way to avoid that and save $168 for 7 months, you're almost there. So it's not worth it. We have been very fortunate to be able to live debt-free for a while now. We bought a house that was within our means. We were able to pay it off early. It is not the fanciest house. There's a lot of things that need fixing up constantly. but it's paid for. Our cars are paid for. We've actually been able to pay cash for the last 4, including the one that Thomas has. When Tristan, after Rosie went to school, Tristan started working, and she was able to work for a couple of years before Shay was born. And every check that she got went into the bank, and it was for a new car. And when she needed a new car, we were able to go to the car dealership and trade in the old one and write a check for $27,000 and not have a car payment. That's a great feeling. And I'm not going to say that we did it all on our own. Our families have been generous with this over the course of the years. But the thing that we've done is that we've always tried to live within our means. And I encourage you to do that as you go to college. You need to think about what it is you need and what is it that you want, and distinguish the difference between the two. And don't look at credit cards as a shortcut. I'm going to provide 3 takeaways. And if I can figure out how to show that, I don't know if I can. I guess I could do it this way. I'm going to provide 3 takeaways for you. And unfortunately, you're going to see them all at the same time. The first one is to avoid debt if you can. Student loans, like I said, are not the world's worst thing. But if you don't need a student loan, then don't take it out. I've done that before when I went to graduate school. The only way, it was kind of a weird thing, the only way to defer student loan payments was to take out another one. And so I wound up taking out a loan that I didn't need. And it just cost me more in the future, right? Second, be careful with credit card debt. They know you're coming, right? I mean, they know, right? Samuel already got it. He already got his first one. You probably might have gotten one, right? Be careful. Don't just take the student loan. Like they said in the video, certainly don't do it because they're going to give you a free t-shirt or something. And then third, talk to your parents. I want to emphasize that more than anything. The worst part of that movie, Maxed Out, is seeing the moms of the two children that wound up committing suicide because of financial trouble. Whatever financial trouble you get into, you need to talk to your parents. You need to be honest. You need to realize there is a way out. The best way out is just to be smart going in. Don't be frivolous. You know, there's definitely a time to splurge and to have fun, but there's also, you can't do that every day. Don't celebrate every day because, oh, today's Tuesday. Let's go eat out because it's Tuesday. That doesn't make any sense. Just be smart. Be smart. If you have any questions, I really wish we were able to do this in person because I always like to take questions and kind of offer other tidbits and whatnot. But if you ever have any questions, please email me. I encourage you more than anything to talk to your parents as you go off to college about finances. Let them watch this video with you. Let them watch the Maxed Out video with you, and get their feedback. And as always, if you do need anything, just I'm an email away. We'll talk to you next time.